What is going on, product managers? Tom Young here for a new Fireside PM video. Today's short one, I don't know if it's going to be that short, but it's going to be about product discovery. Specifically, I'm going to kind of share with you my own experience evaluating a brand new product idea, which I had been contemplating as a candidate for a startup. So this will be one of those opportunities to kind of not just talk about product discovery, but go through an example of the kind of journey that you take. And it's kind of unique when you evaluate a startup idea. It's kind of similar to if you're at an established company, maybe doing a two-pager for annual planning and pitching a new product idea. But it's probably even more involved than that because, in an established company, when you're going to go into a new area, like the decision's kind of like, okay, we're going to make this bet or not. Of course, there's a lot of due diligence, but it can happen in a fairly compressed period of time where there's a bunch of ideas floating around. There's a offsite somewhere, and all the top execs get together and debate and discuss, and then they, kind of the SVP comes back a few days later and says, "Okay, I've made up my mind. We're gonna make these three big bets out of the 12 we talked about." Whereas if you're thinking about founding a startup or kind of going from -1 to 0, actually you have a little more time to kind of let it bake. And in some ways, that's like probably a good thing because most ideas are not that good. And so you do want to give enough time to kind of cull the herd, if you will. So let's jump into the example. So I was thinking about whether or not you could build a business around um, refining GPT answers using paid content. So the premise was, hey, everybody's going to be using ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude as an information worker, the same way you use a spreadsheet or web search today. It's going to be super common. But those chatbots are limited in their abilities partly by the data that they're trained on. And for the most part, they're trained on only free, publicly available data. Now, there's some, kind of licensing deals that are being announced and in place for like maybe some very specific sources. But for the most part, paywalled content is not part of the training data for these chatbots. So the original premise was like, okay, could uh, there be an opportunity for a user to say, okay, I'm going to ask this chatbot a bunch of questions, and then for a startup or some new product or service to say, oh, based on the questions that you're asking, I can refine and improve and harden those answers for you because maybe you want more details, more nuance, you're worried about hallucination, and I can upgrade your answer by accessing uh, these three or four paywalled sources. And I can give you that improved answer for some licensing fee, and then that fee, most of it would go to the publishers. And the pitch was like, oh, well, this is great for publishers. It's a new form of revenue. They don't have to license away like all of their knowledge for one big bang deal. They can make this available to multiple GPTs or AI products, and maybe this will access um, new readers, subscribers, licensors in a way that is kind of like lead generation. It's going to kind of grow the top of the funnel. So even as I talk about it now, it's like, there might be something there. Ultimately, I've decided that, oh, I'm probably not going to pursue this one. And over the last couple of weeks, I've done some kind of product market validation and research in the way of testing a number of GPTs, free answers, and then licensing paid content that was relevant to that answer, asking the GPT to refine it, and then comparing the free answer to the paid one. And I've actually done that with a lot of other volunteers who were kind enough to say like, oh yeah, I'll take a look at some of your market research examples and give you some feedback. And then I also talked to some publishers, and then I talked to some trusted kind of advisors and former colleagues and friends and things like that. And to make a long story short, I ruled out the idea for a couple reasons. The biggest one is that we kind of have enough early data now to suggest that the gap between the free answer, especially if you get a free answer and then you kind of tune it more with or refine it more with other free sources. So you can ask a question and you can say, okay, incorporate this article or this PDF that I found for free on the web. And you can get like a pretty good answer. So there was this issue of like, wow, why would someone pay to refine their answer with this premium content if the free one is maybe good enough? Like that's the ultimate kind of competitor you do not want, which is good enough. Is it better? Yes, it's better when you have the premium tuned answer. Could it be better still if you paid more for, an even more expensive kind of market research report or something? I'm sure. But is the gap so big that someone's gonna pull out their wallet and spend money? Uh, I'm thinking no, even though I was hoping the answer would be yes. The second thing was the sort of game playing of like, okay, well, what if this is a real problem? And what if we do solve it well? What do we think the responses will be from the incumbents? And I think I heard it from enough people as well as kind of my gut feel, which is like, oh, if I were at Microsoft or if I were at Anthropic, like I could put a team together and build a, webmaster central equivalent where a publisher's central where they can upload their paid content into a safe container and then the incumbent chatbot provider um, upsells it to their users and then I get, whatever, 70% of the revenue as a publisher. And so we had these two issues, which is like, wow, the gaps may not be that big and maybe getting smaller as these GPTs get better and the latency goes down and they get smarter, which I mean, if they're already pretty good now, we can only assume they'll get better. And then the second thing is like, even if the gap remains and the paid content keeps getting better, well, why wouldn't the publisher go directly to the chatbot provider? And you could convince yourself that, well, let's imagine there's a list of 100 or 1,000 chatbot providers, in which case then having a work with my startup and I'll get you into the 1,000 of them makes sense. But there's a good chance that this is a ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude game, and it looks a little bit like web search market share. In which case, then they don't need a intermediary third party platform. So I think in summary, this is a good example of how you can get excited about an idea. You think it's novel. Maybe you do some initial validation, but then you got to give it time to breathe. And you've got to actively try and prove or disprove some of the assumptions that are baked in. And you're never going to get a, black and white answer like, yes, this is a great business or no, this is a terrible business. But you'll probably get enough of a read to determine like, okay, like, is this something I want to spend 3 or 4 years building? Or if you're an established company, like, is this something I want to tell the CEO to bet the company on? And so, yeah, that's my kind of little case study on product discovery. Um, I think I did about 7 or 8 user interviews, and a lot of them were like, that free answer was pretty good. And the paid one was a little better, but not that much better. So that was really kind of good validation that hey, this gap is not that big. Um, Now I'm on to a new idea, which kind of like anything, like sometimes the old ideas give rise to the new ones. It's only a couple days old, but I'll just share it here. Let me know if you have any feedback if you think it'd be useful. So the new hypothesis is that more people will use GPTs for knowledge work and answering questions, and that actually will create an even greater demand for human expertise because everybody's going to know enough to be dangerous, and you're going to get to that point where you're like, oh, I think I have like a good handle on this industry or this market opportunity or this technology or this business decision, and because of that, you're going to want that human validation. Maybe 20 years from now, there'll be like general intelligence and we won't need any more humans. But I think right now, if you ask ChatGPT a bunch of stuff, like I think a lot of times if it's an important decision, you're going to want some human kind of sanity checking. And so I guess the question is there a space for a on-demand short video live expert network? So it's a little bit like what maybe GLG or GuidePoint do for like they might charge $1,000 an hour, but is there a place for a $100 for 20 minutes kind of thing where based on your question, I can help you find or the system can help you find an expert that's available right now and you can have a live conversation with them, either video or audio, and maybe they can see if you want the GPT kind of conversation you've had so far, and they can say, "Oh, okay, yeah, it's kind of pointing you in the right direction, but you'd want to double click on this thing," or they may say like, "Oh, actually, that answer ignores a very key blind spot, and you may want to reconsider." where the direction you're going for these reasons. So yeah, that's I guess that's the second thing. I kind of went over product discovery, then I couldn't help but pitch you on a new idea. Let me know in the comments if you would either want to participate in such a service, either as a user to access experts, or would you want to be an expert where you're kind of like an Uber driver, you kind of turn it on when you want to be available. And if we find people that need help right now based on your expertise, like we'll connect you and then you kind of turn it off when you want to go have your dinner or you don't want to take any more questions. Last thing, that's definitely going over the 10-minute mark. Um, I am thinking about teaching a class on a platform called Maven. And the class I'm thinking is going to be around how to nail your next product review. So a lot of you work in companies where you've got the VPs or senior leadership that want you as a PM to either go over the status of a project or to make a decision on a project or to maybe you want them to kind of green light some new initiative you want to bet on. The class would go over kind of the key skills and competencies, but also like give you practice at like summarization, handling a review that kind of goes sideways, pre-wiring it, putting together really crisp slides, follow through, landing them, blah blah blah. With the goal of you getting making a really positive impact, positive impression, good perf rating, and hopefully setting you up for promotion. So I'll put a link below if you are open to number one. You could be on the interest list for this class if I do it. I'm pretty sure I'm going to do it. And then number two, there's a survey in that interest list where I ask you for feedback on the potential topics that we handle in the curriculum. So those are my three things for you today. Number one, the journey of product discovery. You come up with a hypothesis, you try and validate it, you try and get kind of different perspectives, try and find more data. The second thing is, as a favor to me, what did you think about the on-demand video live expert network idea? And then the third thing is, if you're interested in learning more about a class that I'm thinking of teaching, hit the link below and fill out the form, and you will be on the interest list and be notified if the class becomes available. All right. Thanks, PMs. See you next time.